r/nosleep. Posted by you/02321. Such a small little thing can change your life forever. I'll be the first one to admit that I deserved every bad thing that has ever happened in my life. I was never the type to go out of my way to cause problems, but I never had a backbone to go out of my way to solve them either. Being born in a bad end of town in a poor family didn't give me a good start on life. That wasn't an excuse though. If I was really motivated, I could have made something of myself. Instead, I just took everything that was handed to me, good or bad, without question. The night I finally broke out of that habit and stuck my neck out to help was the night that my entire life changed. I was fired yet again from a part-time job, leaving me hurting for some cash. My cousin was a dope dealer and I'd always stayed out of his way until that point. If I wanted to eat, I needed to finally take him up on his offer of a job. It was easy. Meet someone with the product, get paid and not get robbed or killed. Easy. Since he was my cousin, he was giving me way bigger of a take than was fair. I swore I would only do a few deals to get myself fed and wash my hands of it. I was outside a corner store waiting for a client that was running late. I tried calling but my phone was acting up in ways I've never seen before. I could not afford a new one. I put it out of my mind to just wait. The deal was a small one. Almost not even worth going out for. Standing out in the dark, I waited, getting more antsy by the second. The store was tempting me with something to eat while I waited. I didn't want to miss our client, so I just remained outside. The clerk didn't see me just hanging around or didn't care to chase me off. On the other side of the street under the dim light, I saw a shape come stumbling down the sidewalk. A very small figure. To my shock, I saw a child no older than 5 dragging an injured leg down the road, looking behind them as if someone was chasing them. I completely forget what I was doing and took off in a mad dash across the road towards the kid. The poor thing fell into my arms. I didn't know how injured he was, but, in my panic, I lifted him up to try and get a better look. The little guy clung to me, wrapping small yet vice-like arms around my neck, refusing to let go. He wasn't crying even though he was hurt and bleeding. There was blood, but I couldn't tell in the dark if it was from the child or a different source. "Hey, it's alright, let me get a look at you," I told him as calmly as I could. The poor thing was scared and resisted me trying to get a better look at his injuries. No visible wounds aside from a bruised arm and a swollen ankle. And yet he was covered in so much blood someone had to have died near him. I pulled my cell phone from my pocket trying to call for help. Static nearly blew out my eardrum and the call never connected. Running across the road with the child in my arms, I prayed the clerk had a working phone. In the few seconds I was gone, the client I was waiting for came up to the storefront looking confused. I didn't blame him. He just wanted a fix and his dealer had a hurt child. "Does your phone work?" I asked him, sounding as panicked as I sounded. He looked at me dumbly and moved so slowly to reach into his pocket to check. I just snatched the phone out from his hand once I saw it. His phone had the same connection issues. I chalked it up to the same bad network. Taking the dope from my pocket, I shoved it onto his chest along with his useless phone. "Take it." I darted inside the store, not letting him answer, let alone pay me. I planned to have cops and ambulance for this kid to show up. If he didn't arrive when he did, I would have ditched the package. I did not need to have that in my pocket when police showed up. Inside the store was cluttered and hard to move around. I knocked some bags of chips off the display case while making my way to the counter, where a sleepy clerk jolted up from a chair. I suspect he was taking a nap before I rudely came running in. "What the hell?" he asked, looking us both over. "Do you have a phone?" "Mine isn't working and the kid is hurt," I said, out of breath. "Yeah, just 1 second." Turning away, the clerk started to look behind him in the clutter of the counter for a landline. I took that as a chance to put the kid I picked up on the counter to give him a look over in the light. He was wearing a simple t-shirt and shorts, both stained with fresh blood. The smell made my stomach turn, but I refused to let it bother me too much. I had to focus on making sure this kid was alright. His hair was cut short and deep reddish brown with big eyes the same color. He must be in shock because I didn't hear a sound of complaint from being carried or approached by strangers. That bruised arm would be painful for an adult, but he was taking it like a champ. His eyes darted around at the snacks surrounding us. I was trying to rub some of the blood from his face when a small hand shot out towards a small basket of apples on the counter. The injured arm was pressed against his chest, but the free one was making grabbing motions towards the apples. Out of all the junk food in the store, this kid wanted fruit. I didn't even hesitate to take one and hand it to him. "The phone isn't working," the clerk said after shuffling around and finding ancient-looking phone. His face was drained of color from stress. "What do you mean it's not working? It is plugged in?" "Yes, it's plugged in. I'm just getting static." "Do you have a cell phone?" I pressed, impatient. This kid needed to be in a hospital 5 minutes ago. No, my boss doesn't wait. The clerk suddenly had an idea that light up his face. There is a payphone at the end of the block. Like a minute walk away. I don't have change. Payphones don't need change for 911 dude. Right. That made sense. I was so freaked out over suddenly finding an injured kid I wasn't thinking straight. I was going to leave the kid on the counter and in a brightly lit store, but the moment I made a move to leave, his little face twisted in fear. He reached his arm out for me, dropping the apple he took a few bites out of when he did so. It was the most emotion I'd seen from him that I just couldn't leave him behind. Letting him wrap an arm around my neck again, I scooped him up to try another phone, praying to get lucky. Keep trying the landline. If the payphone doesn't work, I'm just going to find another open store until I find one that does. Nodding at my plan, I left the clerk behind in a rush to get my little guy some help. Once I was outside, I realized I didn't know which end of the block the payphone was on. Looking down both ends of the street, I saw it empty and dark aside from a person turning the corner I assumed was the man I gave free product to. On the other end, I saw a payphone booth right beside a bus stop. I really hoped running with the boy in my arms didn't cause him pain from all the bouncing around. If it did, he didn't cry out at all. I felt his little body shaking, so I closed my jacket around him, trying to keep him warm. I nearly slammed into the payphone, not being able to stop running in time. I raised the receiver and heard a dial tone. I honestly thought the day was saved and started to dial 911. When my finger hit the last number, the child I was carrying peeked out over my shoulder behind us. He gave out an ungodly screech that made me drop the phone and turn around just in time to see a man nearly on us. He was dressed all in black and a hood casting shadows over the top half of his face. The bottom half was covered by a scarf or some sort of black material. I got a glance at him before taking a few startled steps back. I gripped the child in my arms, trying to protect him from this newcomer. The man dressed in black raised a hand and punched the payphone. I was at a loss for words when he had the strength to send the damn thing flying. My brain wasn't believing what my eyes was telling it. There was no way this guy just punched a payphone across the street. And I was not sticking around to find out. I started to run from him, but he caught up fast. His hand reaching towards my precious cargo. I didn't know who he was, but I knew this child would not make it if he got to him. I was not a fighter. I didn't even have any weapons on me. My job tonight was a simple one with a person I knew to be harmless. There was no reason for me to bring any kind of weapon. The man was going to catch up to me easily and rip the child from my arms. I needed to do something. So, I did the first thing that came to mind. I stopped running and kicked him in a very tender spot, hoping he didn't have anything protecting his family jewels. To my luck, he did not. Doubling over in pain, I was able to get a head start away from the now man grunting in pain. As I ran, I regretted not doing any sports in my past. My chest was burning and I was going to cramp up my sides. Stopping meant death. For me and this small child. I could not stop. The street I ran down was all closed storefronts. Some parked cars, but no people or any kind of help whatsoever. I doubted my well-aimed kick would keep our pursuer away from us for long. Unable to think of anything, I kept running, cursing the fact there wasn't even an open bar on this stretch of street. Park. I heard a small voice coming from under my jacket. The kid I picked up finally spoke. Poking his little head out, he looked around at where we were. At the end of the road and down a small hill was a park I'd forgotten about. The payphones were ripped put years ago, but we might be able to lose the guy in the small area of trees. That also risked us getting lost as well. On the other side of the park was houses though. Maybe if I could push myself a little bit more, we could find a house with a working phone. If the guy came up behind us, we could try and ditch him in the woods. Or die trying because I was out of shape. Without any better ideas, I turned myself towards the hill, getting my second wind when I heard footsteps behind us over my ragged breathing. The thought of that man catching up gave me the push I needed to make it to the park entrance. My body forced me to stop, wheezing away. The child under my coat peeked his head out to check to see if I was alright. I've never been in so much pain from running before. My throat felt raw and breathing was a difficult task. Still, I just needed to push a little bit more. The trail wasn't long and I would hit some houses in 5 minutes. I tried to run but found it impossible. I hobbled forward, eye on the path instead. The moon was bright, giving me enough light to see by. My sluggish body felt like I was moving in syrup. Every muscle refused to go any faster, even though the darkly dressed man could catch up at any second. If it came to it, I could hide the boy behind a tree and distract him away from the child I was protecting. Here I was, someone who had never done anything for anyone besides myself, fully ready to give up my life to save a child. Sweat made my shirt stick to me uncomfortably. I paused to rub my eyes, trying to see better because of the moisture dripping into them. A noise made me jolt and look behind us, conceived I heard someone. A footstep or breathing. I knew someone was there even if I didn't see them. I debated on going into the trees to hide when a small sound came from under my coat. "Ma, Pa, dare." The boy poked his head out looking down the trail. My heart fluttered when I knew what he meant. His parents were around. Or at least they had been here before he got away from whoever attacked him. I thought I saw a dark shape on the trail in front of us. Something inky dark looking to be shaped like a trash bag. Taking another step, I froze again, now certain I did hear a footstep behind us. The boy looked over and let out a small animal hissing I never expected to come from a child. Twirling around, a man was standing a few steps away. Hands up in the air. He looked friendly enough, but I still didn't trust him. I was so exhausted from running the few blocks I didn't think I could get away if he came at us. Worry started to prickle at my neck and I took a few careful steps back. "Who the hell are you?" I asked him, voice weak from stress. "Hey, I'm just passing by. I saw some blood on the trail. Is everything alright?" I asked, a smile on his face. My eyes darted down to the brick path. He was right. There were a few drops of blood leading down towards the park entrance. My jacket also was covered from when I picked up the bloody boy. I was guessing the child came this way after getting covered in blood and the source was just down the trail. Down towards where his parents may be. Even after running for so long, I felt so cold. This man might be able to help. If the boy hadn't hissed when he saw him, I might have trusted him enough to ask for his phone. "How about you give me the girl? She's little and hurt. I know first aid and we can take care of her before the ambulance gets here." He gave me another smile that was meant to be kind and trusting, but it looked sinister in the moonlight. Still, with one hand raised, he offered me the other as if expecting me to just hand this child over. The small little guy I thought was a boy that entire time was in fact a little girl. She had a boyish face and short cut hair. You wouldn't know she was really a girl unless you heard it personally from her, or her parents. He sensed that he made a mistake. I started to run again, but this man was so close. He hadn't run a few blocks carrying a child. He had the advantage and would easily catch up to me. Fingertips brushed my sleeve. I thought we were both goners when a dark shape burst out from the trees. The other man who had been following us slammed into the stranger. They immediately tried to kill each other, thrashing on the ground. Not staying to see who would win, I started down the path as fast as my worn-out body could. I just needed to put distance between us. Focusing on running, I didn't even look at what was around us. But the little girl I was trying to save did look. When we passed the dark shapes at the edge of the path, she suddenly became a wild animal under my jacket, biting and clawing at my neck, making me stop. I struggled to keep her still and tears came when I thought I was hurting her. "Sweetie, no please." I begged, trying to keep her still. She won out in the end. I set her down, fearing if I kept holding her, I might crush her arm while she struggled to get free. Once on the ground, she ran to the dark shapes, swollen ankle not hindering her. My heart felt like it was being ripped out of my chest as I heard her start to cry a horrible wail. "Mama. Pa." Those two words came from her as tears ran down her little face. The sound froze me to the spot, even though we really should have been getting the hell out of there. Going up to her, I stared at what was once her parents. Fear froze my body instead of sorrow. I didn't understand what I was seeing. From her reaction, these two were her parents. That fact was true. But I wasn't looking at something human. By the time the darkly dressed man caught up to us, I was frozen, mouth open, trying to process what I saw. The two shapes were bats. Very large bats. Bigger than a human, their wings twisted and broken. From their injuries, they had put up a fight to protect their daughter. But bats that size just wasn't real. And bats that size didn't have a human-looking daughter. I just didn't understand it. When my mind snapped into the realization the other man had caught up to me, I suddenly didn't care about the creatures. I only cared about protecting the girl. "Hand her over," he demanded. His was panting and his hood removed. The fight took something out of him. If I got a lucky shot and again, I could get away. Putting my body between me and the girl, I gave him a death glare, refusing to give her up. He matched it with creepy white eyes that made me shudder. He either had contacts, or wasn't human like the bats behind me. Over my dead body, I hissed, rage filling my chest. I couldn't forgive this man for killing her parents. Monsters or not, they shouldn't have had to suffer. And he even hurt that poor little girl. Now he was trying to finish the job. I couldn't do much, but I wanted to believe I gave her enough time to get away. She had the same idea for me though. Getting on all fours, she hissed. Even with such a small body, the sight was a little scary. A pair like us didn't have a chance. If he could destroy a payphone with his bare hands, he could crack me in two if he was fast enough. "I killed your partner, you have no chance against me." Just give up. He sounded equally as angry. Partner? What partner? My rage was replaced with confusion. The man lurched forward to punch me the same time I spoke. He corrected his blow before it hit my face and I felt a burst of wind by my ear. Up close, he looked just as confused as I was. You're not hunting with that man? He asked slowly as if not wanting to accept the idea. No, I just saw the kid and I sputtered, not knowing what he was getting at. Even in the dark I could have sworn his ears turned a little red. Backing up, I wanted to talk things over and figure out what was really going on. He didn't give me that chance. One swift smack to my temple knocked me out. When I woke up, it was days later and I was in the hospital very confused. They didn't find any ID on me, so no one had any idea who I was or what happened. The police guessed I was mugged while in the park. Asking about the little girl and the man chasing us made the officers raise an eyebrow at me. They didn't say it out loud, but I know they thought the blow to my head gave me some sort of damage. I was ready to believe them. There were no traces of oversized dead bats in the park, or the strange man. When they let me leave the hospital, I decided I was going back to that store to double check. The clerk would remember if I came in with a child. The officers didn't even bother asking him because they thought it was all in my head. My phone worked, but I had no money to get ride anywhere. I was so far away from my place. Wondering if I could ask someone for some change for the bus, a woman I didn't recognize approached me outside the hospital. She was round and very attractive. Such pretty girls like her had no business talking to guys like me. She held out something for me to take with a cute smile. I think this is yours, she told me while she adjusted glasses with her other hand. Confused, I saw it was my wallet. My heart started to hammer in my chest. How did she get this? To my relief, nothing had been removed from it. How did you? I asked after double checking everything was in its place. We had to stage it as a mugging. We can't let normal officers finding out about certain things. Vern said he's sorry for punching you in the head, but it needed to be done. I was looking around as if someone was playing a prank on me. A few seconds ago, I was almost convinced what I saw wasn't real and some sort of brain damage dream. Asking the clerk should have confirmed that, and yet this nice looking woman was telling me that crazy idea was real. Is the girl alright? I asked, forgetting about anything else. She's fine. Kids bounce back pretty easy, she explained patiently. Who was the guy that was chasing us? And what on earth even happened? Folding her arms, it looked as if he didn't want to give me any answers. Soon she nodded, deeming me worthy to know. The little girl and her parents are a rare breed just passing through. People use organs of such creatures for medicine, and we have had a big increase in poachers lately. The man Vern took down was the one who killed the girl's parents. He was working in a team. The other partner ran off, and we got him later. Vern wanted to make sure the girl was safe, so he went after her instead of the two poachers. So, when he saw you holding her, he thought you were the partner who got away. That made sense. I didn't blame him for attacking me. We both had the same goal of protecting the girl after all. Alright, I might still feel a little salty about it, but I did my best to forgive him. Mind you, I'm not here to tell you all that. Normally we would do our best to make you believe you never saw anything strange and keep the fact creatures of the dark are real, but Vern suggested this after he saw how you were so protective of that little girl. I kept telling him that most people would do the same thing you did, but he's set wanting to ask a huge favor of you. A favor? I asked slowly, not liking the sound of it. We want to know if you can adopt the girl. She told me straight-faced. I felt a little bit faint and the ground under my feet started to drift. Somehow, I stayed standing while countless thoughts came rushing through my head. Me? Take her in? I didn't even care she wasn't human. I was more worried about my own character. I never thought of myself as a good person, let alone a good father figure. I sounded like a gasping fish. She doesn't have any other relatives to raise her. Other creatures would rather eat her than raise her. And it's not as if we have a list of humans ready to take in a supernatural child. Most of the time we just let nature take its course. That's how the night works. It's not like your human culture. Orphans survive or they die. However, we seem to have a chance to have her live if you take her in. She has a human shape, and aside from a strange personality, she can pass off as one of you. She does have another monstrous form, but as long as you keep that hidden from other humans, we think it might work. The women explained, and I had to sit down. That little girl lost her family and know her only options was death, or me. Both sounded horrible. I can barely support myself, I said finally. We can give you some financial support. That's no problem. Hell, Vern was ready to give up his entire pay to keep her alive. He's too sweet for a hunter and we can't use him for any child-related jobs. Those creatures having a daughter was a surprise and he never should have done this job. I looked her over, still trying to understand what she was asking of me. She looked human enough but spoke as if we were of a different species. I wondered if the man that punched me out was human or not. Still, I'm not the greatest person. Are you sure there isn't anyone else better suited for this? Do you love her? Of course. Even I was surprised by my reaction. I didn't even hesitate even with my doubts. But caring about a child isn't all to parenting. I added in, face flushed. No, but it's a really good start. She added with a warm smile that made my face turn even redder. Adopting a child on the spot isn't a good idea most times. Her only other option was being killed, so even if I was a bad parent, she would at least be alive for a while. Looking up at the women before me, I already knew my answer. Do I need to sign anything? The next few minutes was her going over some papers she pulled out from a mystery spot on her person. She was wearing a tight sweater tucked into a high-waist skirt. I didn't think she had a place to keep them, but they still appeared. The little girl didn't have a human name, so it fell onto me to give her one. I was so stressed being put on the spot again, I went with my grandmother's name, B. Once the papers were done and signed, that was it. I now was a parent with a great deal of responsibilities that hadn't even fully sunk in yet. Do I need to go somewhere to get her? I asked, feeling a little bit tired and a headache starting to creep in. No, Vern knew you would say yes and he brought her over. True enough, when I looked over into the parking lot, I saw a man dressed in black holding a small girl's hand coming towards us. My stomach fluttered and I couldn't stop but worry about if she would even still like me. Those worries were crushed when Bea saw me, her face lighting up in a smile. He snatched her hand away from Vern and got on all fours to get to me faster. Yeah, okay, she was a little bit creepy, but I still scooped her up into my arms to give her a good look over, glad to see her wounds healed. Vern stopped in front of me, sunglasses hiding his odd white eyes. He looked a mixture of shy and embarrassed. I can't stay, but here's my phone number if you have any questions. Vern told me, handing me a card. I took it while letting Bea crawl all over my shoulders. Miss Katie, thank you for asking him to do this, he said while looking over at the women. I had a lot of work ahead of me. Vern and Katie couldn't stay and gave me a quick goodbye before leaving me behind with a new bat monster daughter. In that moment I was more scared than I ever been in my life. My knees were shaking and needed to sit down on the brick border around a flower bed. Bea still stayed on my shoulders while looking around, feet swinging against my chest. Parenthood can be the scariest thing in life, but at the same time I don't regret my decision in the slightest.